Good night, everybody. Can you guys hear me okay? Um, First of all, thanks to George for his invitation to talk on something that I'm quite passionate about. I hope I don't become too passionate, and I'll try my best. The pothole problem, the way forward. I'm not going to be too technical, but I just want to give a general overview. I think the pothole problem in Barbados in our context, can be attributed to three main reasons. The first reason you would see along our major highways, the ABC, Highway 1, Highway 5, Highway 3, in an effort to alleviate the polishing and the skidding when the roads were wet. The MPW had asked that we go to a policy of using granite stone to add additional traction. Unfortunately, in hindsight, we now realize that you need and require to have an anti-strip. The anti-strip, to not get too technical, will stop the asphalt from rubbing off of the granite, and as the asphalt comes off the granite, the stones pick out. As the stones pick out, you get potholes. And I'll give you some slides, but that's the major reason for nothing structural. Nothing structural, it is all about anti-strips, granite stones. Actually, the IADB just did a tender that specified anti-strips. The second one is more prevalent in our newer roads. A lot of our roads were done in the late 90s and early 2000s with the capital infrastructure, Highway 5, the Ring Road around Barbados, and such roads. 20 years on, maintenance, cracks, water settling, ingress into those cracks, fines pump out, you get alligator cracking, eventually the cracks become holes. And then the biggest one of all is the lack of proper structural integrity in the older roads to carry the loading that we see. It's important as engineers, I know you guys would understand that cars don't really damage roads. It's heavy loaded trucks and vehicles. And obviously with the growth that we saw in the 1990s into the 2000s and the massive infrastructural building program that went on, there were significant amounts of heavy trucks without real understanding of minimizing those loads to carry what the roads could carry. And we've seen a huge problem, and these problems get worse in the rainier months because of the ingress of water into our road bases. As I said, that's a patch that was done very quickly, I would say, on the ABC highway. This, as you would think, a lot of people who don't understand what's going on here would think that's something throwaway there. Nothing throwaway there. This is at the Eagle Hall Junction, and that road was probably done by Rayside in the late 1990s. What we see is spider cracking that would have been through aging, no maintenance done, water settled. That white stuff you see there is actually the base of our road that has pumped out and come out. And when you pump those fines out, under the base becomes a void, the asphalt being flexible cracks and goes to fill the void, and eventually that will become a pothole. That can be sorted with a proper maintenance program, which we will talk about. That we Barbadians know is the most prevalent problem, and that's due to a base that cannot carry the loading, water on the road settling because of lack of proper maintenance of our roads. The water can't get off, it settles. Even if there's no cracking and you leave the water there for a week or two, it will naturally permeate through the asphalt, and you get a soft base, asphalt being flexible, flex, crack, problems. So the way forward, there's not a single solution that any engineer in Barbados is going to make that can be done for free. Not one. So the first thing we have to understand, both as contractors, governments, and engineers, is how are we going to fix our roads, and how are we going to afford to fix our roads. This can be solved by a two-pronged approach. As I said, no solution can be made properly and sustainably without a revenue stream to pay for them. a method to create a sustainable, stand-alone revenue stream that is set aside to pay directly for these solutions is required. So how do we do that? Can you go to my second slide? In 2008, 2009, and 2010, I would have attended seminars at the University of Birmingham in the UK, which were primarily to understand how you can deal with secondary and tertiary road infrastructure, how you can do it better, cheaper, and most importantly, how it can be financed. I was the only person from the Caribbean that attended any of those. There were about 60 other comrades from the African countries, Botswana, Namibia, South Africa, Zambia, Ghana, Kenya, all of them. We need to look at a road fund. The government should view our roads as an asset. It is its single biggest asset, bar none. They have a value, they depreciate, they require maintenance and management, but most importantly of all, they can create a commercial utility, create employment. Since as far back as 1935, South Africa, New Zealand, Japan, USA all understood that roads were assets that needed to be properly maintained. And I'm not talking about capital expansion, I'm talking about maintaining what you have. We actually had a road fund up to 1991. And when things got bad back then, our good friends, the IMF, came in and said, no boy, all the money to the consolidated fund. So, what do we do? Mr. Ian Hague at the University of Birmingham was the lead invigilator and tutor. He worked for many years at the World Bank and the IMF. So he understood why the IMF went away from it. And the main reason why the IMF went away from it was there was a serious lack of financial discipline shown by governments and their ministers. I want you to understand this is not something I've made up, but listen. No proper accounting systems and audit rules were followed, seen by many citizens as a waste of time and no more than a slush fund to be abused by politicians. All funds did not always go to road funds, but instead went to the Ministry of Finance, and we all know what happens when the Minister of Finance gets in anywhere in the world. I'm not being specific, and I know it's not a political, this is actual literature, okay? Not unique to Barbados. Okay, I want to make myself clear. So then, Mr. Hague said, listen, if I can get these guys to understand that if they manage the money properly, look at the positives that can come out of having a road network that is usable, maintainable, sustainable. The employment that you can create through patching potholes properly, debushing, clearing wells, clearing drains, marking lines, putting up signs. And interestingly enough, these are employment for the lower echelons of society, many of who have lost their jobs through turbulent economic times. Again, it's nothing different. We are no different. We are not reinventing the wheel. All of these stories are unique to no one. We can attribute to a lot of what is being said here. He said, if I can get these governments to do this thing properly, would you guys consider it? And because he had worked at the World Bank, he was able to maneuver himself. And basically what they said was, under this condition, Mr. Hague, adopt a commercial approach to road management and finance. Bring roads into the marketplace and put them on a fee-for-service basis and manage them. But he had to convince them that it wasn't going to go back to the 1980s and 1990s. So his proposal that the road fund had to be managed outside of the government's regular budget. The government had to commit itself by passing sound legislation that will properly allow it to be managed, that it had teeth for anybody who misused this money, and that the road fund have regular, transparent, published audits with severe penalties for those on the board who did not do it. They fully supported it, and many of these countries have brought themselves out of economic problems through the employment and the knock-on effect of having a proper road network managed and maintained properly. Now, the key thing to understand in this whole process is that the only country in the world that can afford to have 100% excellent roads are those countries in the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia and such like. They are extremely wealthy countries. So we have to understand from an engineering perspective, what is our budget and what can we do with that budget? Now, let's look at the proposal even more in depth. And these, again, are international statistics, nothing that Barbadians made up. When you look at how taxes are collected, there's a high avoidance of and evasion, leakage, and the statistics are staggering. Licensing fees alone, there's about a 30 to 50% delinquency. Transit fees, 60%. But if you have a fuel levy, zero. Why? Because the governments all over the world control the import of fuels. They know every single liter that is imported, every single liter that is used, and therefore have an audit trail. And Barbados has an even better system because there's only one person that imports fuel into this country, the government of Barbados. And therefore they will be able to know how much fuel was used and how much money I should be getting from those that sell fuel in this country. So let's look at our particular situation. Right now, statistically, and Philip can confirm this for me, we have about 130,000 vehicles on our road. And the average, depending on if it's just a normal car, if it's an SUV, it's a little bit higher, and if it's a vehicle, there's a heavy vehicle, there's a special license that you have to pay. But on average, it's about $600 that the government would collect per vehicle annually. Right now, you should expect to get about $75 million in revenue. We get about 42. That is smack dab where everybody else in the world is. We're no different to anybody. So, we know, we've all seen, I sit in my office in Lears, and every time these licensing boys are out there checking things, everybody's pushing a reverse, going down the road, going through a shortcut, and going along. This is the reality of Barbados I'm talking about. We're here to discuss our solutions. It is not unique. The only problem is I've been to other countries where if you are found to be not compliant, you have to park your car, it's towed, and you got to pay extra money. And whether or not that works to any degree to increase these, I don't know, I can't say. But what I can say is that Barbados, in the context, I think, to really solve the issue of potholes and our road infrastructure as it stands now and to the future that's sustainable, we have to get our road fund properly legislated, properly set up. The revenue can be, these are some numbers. We use about 270 million liters of diesel and gas a year. Believe it or not, 270 million. That's a rough estimate. If we said we put 23 cents per liter levy on gasoline, and I want to be clear, this is not an additional tax. We are abolishing road tax and license. Period. You do not pay. The question might arise, but Neil, if you got an electric car, what's going to happen? The electric car would have a special levy as is now, and you would pay because you're paying to use our roads. Okay? So, at those numbers, we could raise about $67 million a year. And we can be fair and we can say, all right, we can give the consolidated fund 42 and we can keep 25. You know what we could do with $25 million a year to just maintain our roads? We could unlock hundreds of millions of dollars in a revolving fund to be paid back annually with a guaranteed revenue stream that can create significant employment, increase NIS, PAYE, and all of the other things that come out from the effect of having employment. Now, people say, but Neil, that gonna cost me more money, man. What are you doing? We already tight, and on average, it's gonna cost between $600 and $800 a year annually. Just paying the levy, no license. That's about what we pay now. And you know what the benefit is? We don't burst our tires, we don't mash up our shocks, and all of the other things that come from the foreign exchange, and all the life cycle cost analysis that's done to show that better roads create less problems for cars, reduce requirement for importing of parts, and all these other things. So this is a no-brainer. Now, one of the things that I had touched on earlier is the fact that we cannot afford to have 100% good roads in this country. So what the African countries have done, who are in the exact same position as us, what they have said is, look, this is our budget and this is what we can do. And they've got consultants to come in, and these consultants will actually drive our roads. And they have high frequency infrared cameras that take pictures of our roads. And there's an international rideability index. And that rideability index, based on 1 being the best to 10 being the worst, gives an average of what our road infrastructure is like. And with the GPS systems that now we know how, we can actually color code these roads that shows blue is good and red is bad. And based on that information and based on the revenue that we have, we can actually go and say, look, we have 11 parishes. The recommendation of this for St. Lucie is we got to repair our roads. The recommendation for St. Peter is this road to be done this year, this road, phase it in and have a tender done that allows people to, on a performance-based maintenance program that involves proper pothole patching, because at the end of the day, we can't do this overnight. This is going to take 5 to 8 years to get this right. So we're going to have potholes that we have to deal with, but we're going to do them properly. We're going to debush. We're going to make sure the drains and the wells work. We're going to get the water off the roads. We're going to create employment for people, because a lot of those NCC workers that were laid off, they can have their own companies. They can debush, they can cut, they can clean. The same guys that mark the roads at the NTW, they can have their own company and mark the roads. And the people at the road fund are responsible for the general overview and to make sure that people do what they're supposed to do, and they only get paid if you paint the lines, and you only get paid if you're on a performance base, not just willy-nilly. It can be done, it has been done, and we can do it here. I have absolute confidence in every person in this country. We have the mental capacity and the brain power to solve our own problems. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can do this. Okay? In Colombia, their road fund even went one step further to have a branch that allowed people to be taught how to have their own companies, how to run their own companies, how to employ people, how to pay income tax, how to do all these different things. There's a myriad of different things that can be done when it's done properly. So, let's go back to the other slide. So now we got the money. So now what we can do with it? There's several technologies that can be used. And I'm gonna base my solutions on asphalt. And I'm not saying that it can't be done in concrete, but I'm gonna base because that's what I do. And again, I have no bias because we own a ready-mix plant. So if you build 100 roads out of concrete, that ain't a problem for me either. I have no bias to this, but I believe that asphalt in Barbados is what we need to do. That's what we know how to do, and that's what we have to stick to. And no offense to Aveline and CEMEX, that's my personal opinion. You have technologies, and we can, let's look at the potholes on the highway and the potholes that we see on our newer roads. I call roads between 12 and 20 years old. It's a new road for me. If it's done properly, it can last. There's technologies like thin layer microsurfacing and slurry sealing, where you just very quickly, Philip is aware of it, you go in and you put on a 1/4 inch layer of coalesce mixed with aggregates. The technology is there, we know what it costs. Very cheaply, around, don't quote me on this, I just call in rough numbers, about $18 a square meter. Very quick, very successful in places like California and those areas that are very, very strong on maintenance. Very quick, those guys can do up to 1.5 miles a day of road that's open the same time. On our less structurally sound roads, our old roads, we have been very successful, and again, Philip can confirm it. We've used a technology called foam bitumen. Just like Aveline said, you penetrate the base with cement, we penetrate the base with bitumen, and what that allows you to do is recycle what's already there. You don't take up anything. You don't have the massive cost of completely rebuilding the road. We've done it on 15 or 16 roads very successfully in Barbados, and it can be used. It's a cheaper option that gives you probably another 15 to 18 years life on an old road. Again, the most important thing of all is a comprehensive performance-based maintenance program. It must be performance-based. You can't go up there and weed up 2 meters of road a day and get paid. You got to produce to get paid. It's performance-based. And my pet peeve, and something that's critical, is that there is legislation that mandates serious fines, which can be legislated and given the road authority the authority to monitor, supervise, and report infractions for any utility company that digs up our road and within 40 hours does not, and I put properly in capital letters, properly patches and reinstates those places. It is critical, irrespective of if it's asphalt or concrete. That is critical, because too many accidents, and on our new, we've just paved a road and they come and dig it up. And if it has to be done, so be it, but do it back properly. I mean, you know, so as engineers, as MTW officials, we got to get and do this thing properly. That's my presentation. I hope I haven't bored you, but it is what it is.